Hello, creators, and thank you for joining us for another Earth Experience episode. We're honored to have Simone from Defiant Life Coaching for this unique engagement. It's a game set within a concise time frame of less than 20 minutes. This isn't just an interview, it's an invitation to actively engage with the content, challenge your perceptions, and deepen your understanding. As we proceed, we encourage you to follow our listening framework designed to maximize your engagement and self-awareness. Section 1 is inquiry and curiosity. Your assignment would be to absorb our discussion, think about what questions arise for you, what would you like to ask Simone to deepen your understanding. Jot those questions down or put them in the comments. You can also choose reflection and challenge. This is when you reflect on moments during our conversation when Simone shares viewpoints that may differ from your own. How do you react internally? Are you able to truly listen and understand, or do you find yourself resistant? Note down your feelings and any strategies you use to remain open and receptive. And then the last section you can use is personal growth and learning. As we navigate through today's topics, pay attention to what resonates with you and why. Are there insights or moments that prompt you to think differently about yourself or your beliefs? Share what you've discovered about yourself in the response.
I think all truth is partial, and every single person triangulates that truth for themselves based on their senses, sometimes based on their lived experience, and based on the kind of education they receive in their specific environment. That's why people's perceptions of the world vary wildly across cultures and in response to certain events like trauma. So my truth might be very different from another person's truth. And even as a scientist, I know that our observing something could change it. And I stay away from stating anything with 100% certainty. I believe that we are here to experience life and teach others how to do it if it helps them, but that we aren't supposed to prescribe a spiritual path onto others, even if we walked it. And so for me, it's always been, I suppose, what I called witchcraft, even when I was young. And there were always interesting events taking place that always brought me back to the path of witchcraft or the path of discovering I am a spiritual being having a human experience. And eventually it led to, a few years ago, a certain spiritual awakening that I think a lot of people discuss in the New Age movement. And my gifts include having visions and being claircognizant and being able to see into people and to help them along. And when I was younger, I actually thought that I was kind of that new age of Aquarius coming into our life, and that I was here to sort of bring people who are struggling into the age of Aquarius, but I couldn't articulate it until maybe 2 decades later. And now that I do the work that I do as a life coach and a spiritual coach, relying on all my education, but also on something intangible inside me that helps heal people, I think it all makes sense, even if it doesn't make sense to other people who are not yet at that place in their life where they have awakened to their divinity, let's say, and their power. It works for people who are the right people to meet me up on this path at this time.
So when you mentioned that you got back on the road of witchcraft, can you describe what that means or explain what witchcraft is and how you end up back on that road? What was the aha moment or the trajectory of that?
When I was a teenager, I laugh because this is going to sound so cliche, but it's the truth. I watched the movie The Craft. Struggling, I had a difficult childhood and a difficult teenagehood, and I thought, wow, women getting together and making shit happen. And I want to do that. And it's not like I was raised with traditional religion or anything. I'm a Russian Armenian immigrant from the Soviet Union, and so we were raised atheists to some extent. And so I watched the movie and kind of wanted to make an altar and have like a book of shadows, and I read a lot and really felt like I was powerful, but my father destroyed my altar and threw it out, and it was really difficult. And my brother died shortly after in a car accident, and he and I would do some kind of magic together, but he would do a lot of like harmful magic where he wanted to influence people's lives, but in a very dark way. And I always tried to like bind his powers. And when he died, I said, I'm done with this. You can have it. I kind of took off all my pentagram necklaces and little crystals, and I put it into his coffin. And I said, I shut the door on that. And then I would say a bit later, a stranger met with me where I volunteered at a hospital. And he looked at my hand and he goes, why are you avoiding your path? If you return back to it, a lot of the chaos that you feel will quiet down. And I was really appalled, but I don't believe in coincidences. I believed that's the path he meant. And so there was a resurgence in my life of getting this black trunk, filling it with a new book of shadows, new crystals, new candles. And then I was pregnant for many years. I have 4 kids. And I believe the kind of power that I possess to shift things in and out of dimensions and into this dimension, I I stopped doing my work because the children we bring in do not consent necessarily to any of that moving through their little bodies and stuff. So while I was pregnant and breastfeeding, I didn't do much. Sometimes just in between pregnancies, I would do a little bit. And so it was after all my kids were born, a few years back, that spiritual awakening took place, and it was much bigger than witchcraft, really very interdimensional, cosmic sort of stuff. And it happened through what they call the dark night of the soul, or maybe 12 different tower moments and ego death. And I think we have this language, but whatever, I think it's accurate to some degree. And so it happened at the lowest point of my life in some ways, that I crawled back out entirely different, and saw my light body and saw all my versions and saw like this work I do when I sleep and how I seed civilizations. I don't know. So it was not really a choice. A lot of the time you just get redirected, and you could deny it, but this time I didn't.
I've heard stories of people tapping into their power and being able to see things and tap into the spiritual world. And for those who haven't had the experience, and I think you spoke to this earlier, is your experience is your experience, so that definitive truth really won't be across the board for everyone. How do you communicate your powers and your gifts to people who completely are missing that experience in their own life? Do you just neglect communicating it to it, or have you ever practiced? I mean, have you ever came across a situation where you thought like, I want to communicate to someone about my power and strength, and it just doesn't come off as seamless as you like? And what is that experience?
Yeah, of course. I mean, people are all kinds. And this isn't just about spirituality, just about even 3D realities. People deny COVID exists, people deny genocide exists, people deny racism exists. So there are a lot of instances where I gauge very quickly where somebody's at in terms of their knowledge and their ignorance. And I'm autistic, and so the way my brain functions, I can glean some of that information almost instantaneously. And so then I make a determination as to whether someone has the ability to meet me on a specific topic where I want to talk about it. But it doesn't actually bother me as much as it used to anymore if a person is really not where I'm at. I just understand that they're on their own path, and it might be something that they'll come across later. And I do, depending on my capacity, every single day make choices on social media and in real life and across all, you know, timelines, whether to engage with someone or not. So I don't know if you've heard of human design, but in human design, I'm a mental projector, and that's my energy type. And I am to wait for an invitation as my mantra. And that means that people have to ask me or invite me to give them answers. And so I wait for that invitation. So if someone comes my way, like my clients, and they want to work with me, or students that I teach, I'm a college professor. So and they ask me questions, and I say, are you willing to listen to my answer, even if it sounds woo woo or if it sounds difficult to hear? And they say yes, then I know I have that in, and that I can transform their life just by talking to them for a little bit. And then equally, as people resist, I feel that resistance and that it's not the time. And now I've learned to let it go. Earlier in my life, I would kind of ram through and kind of be like, no, you have to believe what I believe. You have to see what I'm seeing. If only I could just explain it and over explain it to you, then you'd be on the same page, right? And I learned very frustratingly that no, that's not how that works. You can't control people or tell them what to think or even feel, and they're just gonna do things out of your control. And that's the whole point, to detach, to allow, to permit, to let it flow, to let everyone else make their mistakes, to watch it happen. I watch everyone's life go as predicted, really, and as I predict, and I'm no longer frustrated by that, where I'm like, wow, look, that's like a whole train wreck. Here are all the steps they're gonna take, and I've taken all those steps myself, where I now have to accept that I was definitely a statistic and I was definitely making all the same mistakes. And so I can try to do what I do now, and tell people, don't get married. You don't need to have kids. You could be a lesbian, you could be childless, you could be asexual, but to the extent that they'll listen. But to see them get married, have kids, go through their divorce, I'll meet them after that divorce and say, let's go to the next stage. Because at this point, I no longer say I told you so. I no longer say, well, see, I was right about something. I just say, okay, great. Like, let's meet here now that you're ready for what I have to say. I'll be here for the messiness and the darkness, having lived it.
I'm curious to understand this and I had a conversation very similar to everything you just described, where you have a particular belief system and you just stop trying to force it on other people. And that's where I think my position is I don't know who has all the answers. I don't know who's right or who's wrong. I just have my experiences to hold on to. And in that case is you can have these definitive truths, or you can even have this understanding about me. But to your point, some people will agree with you and invite you in, and then some people will, at the invitation, still disregard your message. Why do you think it is that you have answers for other people's lives, but they aren't able to tap into it for themselves and be able to say what those directions are? Like, and I'll give you an example. So my cousin once told me, she was like, I don't understand prophecy, because why would God give someone outside of me that message instead of giving it directly to me? What would be the purpose of it?
I see. I would say your purpose is different from prophecy. You have a different gift and you have a different mission. So God gives that, God, source, universe, or you choose the gift of prophecy, and someone else chooses the gift of whatever you are yet to discover. To your question, I still think they are going to be changed by what I say, even if they are resistant and can't see it. I still think energy reverberates, and in ways we do not know. I have been writing in a more articulated manner lately about how if I come across anyone, even just this interview with you or any other spiritual being, which I think everyone is, it's for a reason. So like, the time that I'm supposed to talk to someone is the right time, even if the supposed like initial reaction or later reaction is like resistance or thinking I'm crazy or whatever. It's gonna have its reason. And I think that people's purpose gets revealed at different times in life, and this is also coming out of human design a little bit. I'm like a 4/6 in human design. This might only make sense to people who are into that. And as a 4/6, I'm supposed to live the first half of my life just like collecting human experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then I'm supposed to live the second half of my life integrating some of that, and then really just kind of spreading the message to the people who invite me to help them through their life. And so I would think, okay, well, maybe the person I'm talking to is still, I don't know, at a stage of life where they're supposed to collect the human experiences. It's not going to make any sense to them that I'm saying it, because they have to go through it before they can reflect on it. And it's like the same thing I do when mentoring students who want to go to graduate school. And I went through graduate school. That's your timer probably. And they are so excited, and I can see see them make all the same mistakes and steps that I made, and yet they do have to go through the graduate school process to be able to get out of it, and then me to tell them, like, you see, you know, how exploitative and ridiculous that was, but you really have to experience it. So when there's resistance, I take it as that's part of someone's journey, it's part of their lesson. They're gonna have to experience it so that they can say, wow, here's what I learned, and that's how they're gonna go help people. And I think we're all gifted very, very differently. So I often think about this, like folks who channel, they channel different beings. Sometimes it's Jesus, sometimes it's Bashar, the alien, sometimes it's some other thing. And I have to be like, it's so strange because I actually do believe that people channel some of these entities, but they are all entirely contradictory in terms of what they're saying. Sometimes people will channel the Galactic Federation and their message about Earth's ascension. Sometimes people will channel the second coming of Jesus, and I'm sort of uncommitted. And so I say, you know, that's probably the same way that death works. And death works in a way where when you die, you go and meet whatever other higher realms in ways that make sense to you. So some people will see Jesus and angels. Some people will see, I imagine I'll just see a lot of lesbian magic. But anyway, and some people will see whatever it is, their deities and their religion and culture brought together. And that's just, it's all the same thing, but the way it shows up and the manifestation it takes and the literal, you know, way people see and channel differs. But that people channel at least the truth, at least some of the time.
So I'm glad you worded it that way, because I'll lean into this one for definitive truth the way that you worded it just now, and I'm still here. If you say that everyone taps into a channel and it's based off of what they believe in, so that you'll see a lot of lesbian magic, someone will see Jesus. On a scale 1 through 10, how confident are you in that truth? Do you like 10 being like, I know exactly that that's going to happen, or 1 is I'm just saying things on
9.
9? Okay. And then to close us out, I have we'll close us out with that section. Thank you for tuning in. If Simone's conversation sparked your interest, visit defiantlifecoaching.com for more on embracing life challenges and turning them into opportunities. Learn about her coaching methods and how they can help redefine your approach to life hurdles. Begin your transfer journey